Gotta calm down before this one, because this is getting ridiculous. All right, everybody, we are live. How's it going, everybody? So, this is going to be a webinar understanding the psychology, the narrative, and the reason why global governments are creating this division amongst the people and having a war of the unvaccinated versus the vaccinated. Okay? And we're going to be looking at this not from a conspiracy standpoint. We're going to be looking at it purely from a psychology standpoint as well as an economic standpoint. Okay? So, and how this is all complete, absolute bullshit for more power, money, and control. Okay? So, number one, I want everybody to understand that the money markets, the economy, the financial markets moves well ahead before mainstream media and what you see presented to the masses. The money moves behind the scenes are already happening well before any news is given to the mainstream media, as well as any information is provided to the masses as a whole from their governments, news, and other outlets. Okay? I'm going to give you several examples of this that you can go and back test yourself. Okay? So, the reason to confirm this is I want everybody to understand, because a lot of this information has been lost as these totalitarian, tyrannical government regimes are using mass fear mongering, mass chaos, mass amounts of misinformation and confusion to keep people lost, to keep them not understanding the true reality of the situation we are facing. Okay? Number one, before the Delta variant was discovered, before Omicron variant was discovered, there has already been confirms of orders in the billions of doses and billions of dollars from governments across the world for vaccines for 2022 and 2023. Please understand this and really listen to this. Before the Delta variant was discovered and there was even any news in the mainstream media for a second dose or a second booster being needed, because remember, first we were told that COVID is this virus that's coming out that is very widespread, but it has flu-like symptoms and a 99% survival rate. That survival rate is still the same. COVID hasn't changed. It is still extremely, very easy to get over if you are in good condition. I don't care about the senior citizens, and I don't care about the obese, fat motherfuckers, because at the end of the day, logically speaking, somebody who is older age has a compromised immune system, and somebody who's fat as fuck has a compromised immune system, where if they were facing the regular flu, it would be a lot worse than a regular healthy individual. Okay? So number one, COVID-19 has a confirmed 99% survival rate. That's number one. Number two, we were originally told that you were only going to need one vaccine and one shot to protect and prevent COVID. This was not the case. And I want you to understand something. When the mainstream media, through the government, through the politicians, told the masses that, hey, you're going to have to get one vaccine shot, there was already orders in for second boosters for the coming year. So in 2020, when the COVID first hit in March, then months later, they already had vaccines developed. The mainstream media, as well as the government officials and leaders, told the masses, you're going to need one shot. Even though behind the scenes, the masses don't know that these various governments already did orders with Pfizer, with Moderna, with other vaccine companies that are still producing vaccines to this day, like Novavax and so forth, and these other Russian companies like Sputnik, the vaccine they were producing there. The orders for booster 2 were already being produced. The deals and contracts were already signed. The UK, the US, the Canada government, they already ordered boosters for the second dose before the masses even knew that they had to take one dose. So think about that. Before Delta variant was discovered and before the Omicron variant was discovered, again, these various politicians and government leaders have already ordered millions and millions of doses for 2022 and 2023. Before Omicron was even discovered, there was already contracts signed between countries and these vaccine companies for more boosters for the coming year. That's a little bit interesting, isn't it? And you can go and back check this information. I personally have access to that news terminal. I can send these headlines to the Capital Hungry news feed where you can see that the orders for the vaccines, well before the media told the masses that they need a first dose, second dose, and third dose, the orders behind the scenes, the money moving, the transactions happening were already in play. And you have to understand, there are several parties that are benefiting off of this global vaccination from a monetary standpoint. First of all, you have the actual vaccine companies where their actual market share, their share price has only gone up exponentially, surged through the roof, right? Then the vaccine companies have various amounts of investors that are involved who are also looking to get a piece of this pie and get their hand in this cash cow. Then you have the vaccine companies and big pharma, all the different contractors that are working with the vaccine companies and big pharma, all the various investors, all the various lobbyists, and the politicians who are benefiting from this big circle, right? So what we can understand is that the money is already moving well ahead of time before anything else is really going on, and what we're being told in mainstream media or what we are being told from the government officials and so forth. So keep this in mind. You can backtest and confirm this information. Before the government officials told anybody that they had to get one vaccine and that one vaccine was going to be all, the orders for booster 2 and 3 were already in. It was already being manufactured. It was already being produced. The contracts were signed. The money was paid. The orders have been in. Okay? Now, coming up to recent times, before Omicron variant was already discovered, before it was discovered, and before the masses knew that they potentially have to get a third booster now, the orders for vaccines for 2022 and 2023 were already in and confirmed. The production is there. The supply is there. There's no supply chain issues. There's no lack of supply on vaccines. The production, the contracts, the orders, they've been consistently developing for the last 2 years. And they already have plans and contracts to continue developing these vaccines into the next year and into 2023 before Delta variant was discovered, before Omicron variant was discovered. Okay? Now, I'm going to give you guys another example. The mainstream media and the government officials have not told the masses about this yet. What you've been seeing in news so far is that you need to get your third booster now. Omicron is this new variant. It's extremely high risk. Now you need to get your third booster. But what the masses don't know behind the scenes is that the US, the European Union, the Canadian government, and other global governments have already put an order for the tens of millions of doses for a COVID pill that has yet to hit the masses. So what you're going to see in the next 3 months and in the next year is that on top of the boosters, there's going to be COVID-19 antiviral pills and nasal sprays that will be offered. I'm telling you this because it's not conspiracy. You guys know I trade the financial markets. All I give a shit about is the money game. All I care about is the economics, the finance side of things. And I'm telling you that it's already been confirmed by the Biden administration. It's already been confirmed by the Canadian government and other governments across the world that tens of millions of doses of the antiviral pill have already been ordered and will be coming to supply the masses in the near future. So, isn't that weird? Isn't it weird that these vaccines were already being produced for boosters that the masses were already unaware about? They were already getting the orders ready, the money made, the contract signed, and you have to remember, there's too many dependencies on this vaccine money, this vaccine cash cow. It's not just the vaccine companies. It's other pharmaceutical company and contractors that are associated with it. It's other banks and financial institutions that are invested in it. It's other private investors. It's the military bureaucrats and lobbyists. It's the politicians who are also getting a kickback and are also investors in this themselves. There are too many dependencies on these vaccine orders and contracts being fulfilled. Okay? So listen, I do not think that the vaccine is meant to kill the masses. I don't think any type of health conspiracy, right? But what I do think is that this cycle of fear mongering, discovering a new variant, scaring the people, pushing another booster, it's not going to stop until all of the orders, which are going until 2023 already confirmed, have been fulfilled. You have to understand. Listen from a business perspective, okay? You have this pandemic hit the scene, a problem, right? A problem that affects the majority of the world. It impacts their livelihood, it impacts their health, it impacts their day-to-day way of living and overall economies and everything in between, okay? Then you have a solution created to this problem in a very short period of time, where the solution is a product that must be produced, manufactured, and paid for just like any other product. The only difference here is that the consumer of this product is the masses, and everybody is forced to be a customer. Think about the business model. You have a problem that you have a solution for that impacts the entire world. Your customer base is potentially every single person in a poor country, developed country, doesn't matter. And your customer base is also being potentially forced to take this vaccine. Otherwise, they cannot go to work, they can get fired, they can't go back to their way of life, and they cannot protect their loved ones and family and so forth, okay? There is way too much depending on these consumers taking the vaccine because the customer base is already set. The orders are already set. Various country governments have already have already ordered vaccines, signed contracts, have made the payments with these vaccine companies for 2022 and 2023. And the orders have not been consumed yet. For example, within the US, only 50% of individuals have been vaccinated. That, when you're thinking from a business perspective of the vaccine companies, that means that there's still another 50% of customers available, right? So their strategy is, all right, our fear-mongering tactics, our tactics around removing people's freedoms, it has worked so far to get 50% of our customer base vaccinated. But there's still this other 50% we need to get vaccinated. How do we fulfill those orders? How do we meet these sales quotas? How do we fulfill these contracts that have already been signed? The payments are in, the investors are locked in, all the hands are within the cash cow. We just need the customers to consume the product. That's it. It's a business, okay? How are we going to do this? We have to do it through extreme fear mongering, and we also have to create scapegoats. This strategy of creating scapegoats and deflecting the actual real logic and problems and creating division in a society is a strategy used by tyrannical leaders throughout history. When you look at totalitarian governments, when you look at Joseph Stalin in Russia, He made the Ukrainian scapegoats. You're seeing the Ukraine-Russia stuff still going on to this day, right? When you look at Hitler in Germany, he made the Jewish people scapegoats, right? Now in modern society, the government officials, the tyrannical leaders, they're making the unvaccinated people the scapegoats. The unvaccinated people, as per the government, are the reason cases are so high, are the reason that you are unsafe, that you are at risk, that COVID is still such a big issue. The unvaccinated people are the problem. So what they are doing is that they are pushing the vaccinated people in society to have an issue and dispute the unvaccinated. Why? Because the 50% of customers that are still left to consume the vaccines are the unvaccinated people. So you have to make them a target. You have to make them a scapegoat. You have to make them the black sheep, the sore thumb sticking out, where they feel uncomfortable, where their family members will make them feel uncomfortable, where their employer will say, hey, if you don't get vaccinated, you will be fired, where you will be pushed out of the societal circle and looked as like an outcast if you don't get the vaccine. Why? Because the orders have to be fulfilled. The vaccines are produced, ready, contract signed for 2022 and 2023. The masses don't even know yet that they have to get their third booster, and then the antiviral pills are going to come out. That's not a conspiracy. The orders are in. The contracts are signed. Biden administration for the US has already ordered tens and millions of doses of the antiviral pill. Tens and millions of doses worth billions and billions of dollars total that further support the vaccine company's share price and further support all the hands on this cash cow. The investors, the lobbyists, the bureaucrats, the politicians, and so forth. Everybody connected where, remember, everything in our life is a transaction. Everything has some type of sacrifice. Every buyer has a seller, and there's somebody always on the other end of the coin that has to be the consumer. We, the masses sheep, are forced to be the customer and consumer of this vaccine product. Okay? So now, we can see that people are now going for their fucking third booster, right? To now protect them from the Omicron variant. What inspired this webinar is that there was a recent post by the White House, the US government, the White House, that said, if you are vaccinated, you did the right thing. You're protecting your family, you're protecting your loved ones. If you are not vaccinated, you are the one who's at risk. You're the one putting everyone else at risk. You need to get vaccinated, because remember, the unvaccinated people are the other 50% of people, the customer base, that is yet to be targeted, that has yet to consume the vaccine on orders that are already in. The money is set. The investors are in. The contracts are signed. The masses don't even know that the vaccine contracts have been ready for dose 2 and 3 since the start of 2020. They don't know that the vaccines are still going to be produced with antiviral pills, with the nasal sprays up until 2022 through 2023. The vaccine company CEOs themselves said, we might not see the end of the pandemic until 2024. Now let's start asking some logical questions. First of all, if COVID is such a mystery, if every single variant is always so random and being randomly discovered, why were boosters 2 and 3 already set for production, the manufacturing already done, and the orders already in? That doesn't make much sense, does it? Number 2, why or how, with this potential virus that can mutate at any moment and a new variant come out, how can you give the timeline that 2024 is going to be the end? How can the Canadian government, within their economic outlook plan, the federal government of Canada, how can they throw in their monetary policy plan that vaccine mandates will be active until 2025? How do you know this? How do you confirm this? How do we confirm we haven't developed herd immunity yet? How do we confirm the severity of this? How do you confirm when new mutations are going to come up? You can't. All of this is misinformation. It's chaos and confusion that's meant to distort the mentality of the masses to have them make a very abrupt decision and follow the herd mentality. Let me give you another example, right? Individuals who are vaccinated and have vaccine 1, vaccine 2, and vaccine 3 can still get COVID and transmit COVID. So, how does getting the vaccine protect you or your family? Person had vaccine number 1, they still got COVID and could spread it. Person got vaccine number 2 and booster number 2, they could still get COVID and can still spread it. Now the Omicron variant came out, which is more widespread and more risk all of a sudden, even though it's the same 99% survival rate. And you can go get booster number 3 and you can still get COVID and you can still spread COVID. So how is anybody protected? How is anybody safe? All it's supposed to do is apparently lessen the symptoms of COVID if you do get it, even though COVID already for a healthy individual has a 99% survival rate. Right? Also, if the vaccine did do its job, remember the definition of vaccine is it's supposed to prevent and protect, right? If the vaccine was doing its job, why would it matter to anybody else who's vaccinated if somebody else is unvaccinated? Why would it matter? If the vaccine was doing its job in protecting against COVID and preventing transmission of COVID, why would it matter if someone else gets vaccinated or not? If you are vaccinated, you are protected, right? Wrong, because that's not the case. The vaccine does not protect you against COVID. It does not prevent transmission against COVID. And now we're going to look at topic number 3. As they're putting the vaccinated people against the unvaccinated, they're saying that the rise in cases in majority of countries is due to the unvaccinated people. Really? Let's look at this logically. Anybody who's vaccinated can still get COVID and has the same likelihood of getting COVID as anybody else. Number 2, 99% of people who are unvaccinated for the following reasons. They don't trust the government. They don't trust how aggressive the government is trying to push these vaccines, and they do not want to have their freedoms removed. They want to make their own choice through their own free will. So think about this. The individual who's unvaccinated already doesn't trust the government, already doesn't trust this whole scenario, fear-mongering and totalitarianism, as well as tyrannical regime. They don't trust it, right? But they're the ones that are going to get tested every time they feel sick? No, the unvaccinated people have a higher probability of not actively getting tested. Does that not make sense? They already don't trust the government. They already don't trust the current system. If they feel any types of symptoms, where remember, the symptoms of COVID are not that unique. The symptoms of COVID are very similar to flu-like symptoms, to cold-like symptoms, cough, a fever, maybe some little bit of wheezing and difficulty breathing. Any individual who has been unvaccinated and who does not trust the government, whenever they are feeling any type of illness, they did not go and get tested. You know who's getting tested? The same vaccinated individuals who are in fear mode because of the virus. Not the people who don't give a fuck about the virus or who don't care about the vaccines and why would they go and get tested? It doesn't make sense. They don't support the vaccine. They don't trust the government, but they're going to feel a little bit sick and now they're going to go get tested and trust the government and trust the healthcare system. It doesn't make sense, okay? The majority of cases that are still increasing are vaccinated individuals. Why? Because we already have the confirm. Science confirms that with this COVID virus, you can get 2 boosters and you can still get COVID. You can still get COVID and you can still transmit COVID. Okay? So listen to this. Stop falling for the fear-mongering. Stop having this division between unvaccinated and vaccinated. It's absolutely moronic. It is idiotic. It makes no logical sense. Okay? I don't care if you believe in the science, if you don't believe in the science or the conspiracy. I'm telling you about the economics. I'm telling you about the financial side. The reason the governments are making the unvaccinated people a scapegoat is because that is the other 50% of the customer pie left. The orders for the vaccines, the contracts for the vaccines, they've been signed and ready for the last 2 years. The orders are already in for 2022. The orders are already in for 2023. The antiviral pills are already ordered and coming. The antiviral nasal sprays for COVID, they're already in. It's already coming. The governments have signed the contracts. They've put in the orders. There's too much dependency on the fulfillment of these vaccine orders because of all the hands involved in this cash cow. Do you understand what I'm saying? The vaccine companies, all the other healthcare companies working with the vaccine companies, the financial companies and financial institutions invested in the vaccine companies, the private investors, the lobbyists, the politicians who are getting a kickback and getting money invested into this. The simple economic standing is that you had this problem. The solution is only the vaccines. The vaccines don't protect you from COVID. They don't prevent you from getting COVID. They don't stop you from transmitting COVID. And the world is forced to be a customer. But the fear mongering through the first 2 years has only worked on 50% of the customer base. In the US, only 50% of the population is vaccinated. In Canada, only about 60% of the population is vaccinated. So these vaccine companies, these governments, these tyrannical leaders are looking at this huge cash cow and saying, hey, the orders are fulfilled, the contracts are signed, we have to get the other 50% of our customer base, the masses, to take this vaccine. How do we do this? We remove more freedoms. We put them back into lockdown. We make the unvaccinated into scapegoats. We create division between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. We remove their way of life. We force them down this path of being forced to take this vaccine. Because the money, because the power, because the finance side is already set and in play. There's too many hands involved in this cash cow. Okay? So, end of the day, let me summarize so you understand this. COVID-19, since the beginning of its discovery in 2017, 2015, right? Which is just a mutation of SARS, right? Like mainly impacts your lung system and so forth. It's already been well known. With the technology that we have today, it's already been well known, has a 99% survival rate. Before Delta variant was discovered and the masses had to get a second booster, before Omicron variant was discovered and the masses have to get a third booster, the orders in production, the contracts for booster 2 and 3 were already in play. All right? You can go back test this, okay? And this isn't happening all for free. To confirm the money side, I used to work at Royal Bank of Canada. It's the largest bank in Canada, okay? Banks make huge amounts of money in whatever country they are in. Just to give you guys an example, within 1 year, the Royal Bank of Canada would generate $11 billion in revenue on average. Pfizer, the vaccine company, generated $20 billion in 3 months, in 1 quarter. The amount of money, the amount of parties involved in this money is astronomical. It's huge. The whole world is forced to be a customer. The whole world is forced and being put into a line to consume this product. It's nothing but supply and demand, money, and the contracts and metrics that come with it. It's nothing about, I'm not trying to fearmonger and say, the vaccine's going to kill you. I don't care about that. I'm not trying to fearmonger and say that COVID doesn't exist. COVID exists. The virus exists. But it's still a 99% survival rate, and this is all about money. So understand, before Delta variant was discovered, the contracts, the production for boosters number 2, it was already signed and ready to go. before the masses even knew, before mainstream media told the people. The boosters were ready. The money was paid. The investors were ready to get their cash, get their piece of the pie, right? Before Omicron was discovered, the orders for 2022 were already in play. The boosters were there. The countries have signed the contracts. The orders were in. Before you guys have even heard in the masses about the antiviral pills or nasal spray, on the economic side, the orders are in. It's already been paid. The tens of millions of doses are being produced. They're going to be distributed. You're going to hear about it in the mainstream media in the new year. Hey, on top of your booster, or if you don't like needles, come take the antiviral pill now. Come take the nasal spray now to give you extra protection. Understand that. The orders, the money came before the variants. That's number one. That is a 100% fact. That is 100% fact. It cannot be argued. Just like the orders are already in for the antiviral pill, and the mainstream media doesn't even know about the pill yet. They only know about the third booster they have to get so far, the third jab. Okay? Number two, there are way too many dependencies on this vaccine money from all the parties stated that have to confirm these orders being fulfilled and consumed. Otherwise, you're going to lose money. You're going to lose money if these vaccines don't get consumed, if you don't have the big circle of money going back into those hands. The vaccine companies, all the financial institutions involved with the money, with the credit lending, the money, the investing, all of the private investors, all of the politicians, all of the lobbyists and so forth. There's way too many hands in this cash cow. Number three, 50% of countries, for majority of developed countries, have been vaccinated. That means the other 50% are the customers that are still left. That's why you're seeing this huge division between unvaccinated and vaccinated. That's why you're seeing the unvaccinated being scapegoats now. That's why you're seeing the unvaccinated being targeted now. This is a psychological manipulation because what they found is, listen, the fear mongering, the scare tactics, the removal of freedoms, the lockdowns, the removal of freedoms, the vaccine passports, the fear mongering with health and so forth, even though it's 99% survival rate, those marketing tactics, those sales tactics to sell this product worked for 50% of the customer base. For 50% of the population, those sales tactics worked. Those psychological warfare tactics worked. The fear mongering, the if you don't get vaccinated, you can't go to work, the lockdowns, all that worked for 50% of the population. But those tactics didn't work for the other 50% of the people who are looking to protect their freedoms, to protect their free will, their choice, right? So now they have to introduce more tactics to pressure that other 50%. How do you do that? You make them the enemy of the 50% who's already been vaccinated. Now the enemy of the vaccinated people isn't COVID. That's not the enemy. That's not the issue. It's the unvaccinated people who are the enemy. They're the risk. They're the super spreaders. They're the ones who are the problem. Now you have all the fear mongering tactics, all of the sales tactics that I'm already stating. You have that on top of the vaccinated people targeting the unvaccinated people because the agenda is being pushed by mainstream media and the government. Why is it being pushed? Because the unvaccinated are the other 50% of the customers left. Is everybody following along? Does that make sense? Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? This is not a conspiracy about the vaccine's gonna kill you. This is not a conspiracy that COVID's fake. It's none of that. I'm telling you guys about the stock market, the finance, the money that's happening behind the scenes, the supply and demand, the marketing, the sales tactics. There's way too many dependents on this huge cash cow. And their whole customer base is us. We're being forced to be their customer base. And over the 2 years, the fear and so forth has worked on 50% of the customers, right? It is the exact same thing. It is the same tyrannical strategies and shit and so forth that all these totalitarian governments have used before. So now, okay? Now you guys understand. Now you guys understand that the orders for the vaccines came before the variants. Before the variants were discovered, before the masses knew that they had to get 2 boosters, 3 boosters, the orders, the production, the manufacturing, the investing, that was already in. That was already in for the next year. It's already in currently for 2022 and 2023. Okay? There's already orders in for antiviral pills that the mainstream media doesn't even know about yet. Okay? Number 2, there's no difference in protection between the vaccinated and unvaccinated. A vaccinated individual could get the first shot, they can get the second shot, and they can get the third shot, and they can still get COVID. They can still get COVID, and they can still transmit COVID. Number 3, there's a high probability that unvaccinated individuals are not getting tested for any reason, right? The people who are getting tested are the ones who are supporting the vaccines, who are fear-mongered and who are scared, and who are still got the vaccines, but then get the symptoms of COVID. Because they get the vaccine, then they get these flu-like symptoms, and they're like, oh shit. They're so scared that they run to the doctor and get tested right away, and the doctor goes, shit, you got COVID. And they go, what the hell? I got the vaccine. Well, the reality is the vaccine doesn't prevent you from getting COVID. Okay? So please understand that this is nothing but a game about money. Number 1, it's a game about money. Number 2, it's a game about control. Because what you have to understand is as the masses have continued to comply, where the masses are already dumber than ever, fatter than ever, stupid as fuck, financially unstable, they've also been consistently giving up freedoms, giving up rights, and becoming more compliant, and are also now starting to target and fight the unvaccinated individuals. Okay? There is no vaccinated versus unvaccinated. Don't let this totalitarian, tyrannical government create scapegoats to push their agenda and to push their narrative. Don't let the same thing happen that happened in Russia with Stalin and the Ukrainians. Don't let the same thing happen with Mussolini and the individuals that he created scapegoats in Italy. Don't let the same thing happen with what Hitler did to the Jewish people and created them as a scapegoat. All right? Now, what they're doing to push their narrative and agenda to make sure the other 50% of their customers take the vaccine is making the other 50% of their customer base into the scapegoat. They're the problem now. They're the risk. They're the issue. When you can still get vaccinated and still get COVID. Okay? The tactics that are being used from a psychological standpoint, the art of war happening from a mental standpoint, is no different than any other totalitarian ruler, any other tyrannical regime. All right? Stop letting them divide the it's divide and conquer. It's the same tactic used through history. Divide and conquer. Okay? It doesn't matter if you're vaccinated. It doesn't matter if you're unvaccinated. You can still get COVID. You can still transmit COVID. What does matter is the amount of orders that are already in play, the amount of investors, the amount of parties that are involved in this huge cash cow. Okay? The orders are all, the vaccine order, I'm telling you, even when people take their third booster, fine. People want to take their third booster. Why are the vaccine companies still producing more booster orders for 2022 and 2023? Why are they already producing antiviral pills? Why are they already coming out with the antiviral COVID nasal spray? Why are they coming out with this whole line of products for this problem where their customer base is the whole world forced? And if you don't take it, you're going to lose your freedoms. You're going to lose your rights. You can't go to the gym. You can't go to the bank. You can't go to the grocery store. You can't work your job for a virus that has a 99% survival rate. Where's the logic? Guess what? There is no logic. And you know what the worst part of this is? is that the next generations are being born into this. The next generations are never going to know what freedom is. The next generations are being born into an age of being more compliant, of being more scared, of being mentally weaker, of being physically weaker, of social distancing, of avoiding communication, avoiding contact with other human beings, wearing masks, having their freedoms and rights taken away. And guess what? Whenever there's a totalitarian regime, whenever there's a tyrannical ruler, he doesn't take power during his first generation of rule, right? Whenever there's a tyrannical leader, such as potentially with Hitler or with Joseph Stalin, or a great example is with the Kims in North Korea. When the tyrannical leader first comes into play, the first generation that he is in line with, they tend to fight back. They tend to have some type of resistance because they've known what freedom is before the tyrannical leader. They know what it's like to not be controlled, to have your own freedoms, to have your own rights, to make your own choices. So they are level with the tyrannical leader, and usually there's a resistance. You will have 50% of the population follow suit, and the other 50% of the population resist, create a revolution. But if the tyrannical leader ends up taking control of the first generation that he is involved in, the next generations are easier and easier to take control because they are born into this environment. Look at the Kim dynasty. In North Korea, when the current Kim's leader's grandfather, right? When the current Kim leader's grandfather was first looking to take over and take full control of that country and keep everything controlled by the state, you had a lot of fight back. There was 50% of the population who was compliant, and there was another 50% who said, no, we don't want to give up our freedoms. We don't want to give up our rights. This is our land as well. And they fought back, right? But now in North Korea, since the generations have followed, as the totalitarian government has taken full rulership, the new generations in North Korea don't even know the definition of freedom. They don't even know what the internet is. They don't even know the definition of the word love. All they have ever been taught in school, all they have ever been raised by their fearful parents is these are the gods. The Kims are the gods. They are the rulers. Everything they say goes. Your job in your life is to praise them, is to do whatever is best for them. That is what is normal. That is what they are born into. That is what that has been conditioned into the next generations. And we are not far from that in the Western side of society. So this whole bullshit about the government's trying to pin the unvaccinated as the risk is fucking false. COVID has a 99% survival rate. Even if you get your first booster, you can get the second booster and shut up your ass. You can get the third booster in your fucking forehead and put it straight to your brain. You could get the antiviral pills. You could put a nasal spray in both your fucking nostrils. Put the nasal spray in your ears for all I give a shit. You can still get COVID. You can still get COVID. You can still transmit COVID. All right? The only reason the unvaccinated people are becoming the scapegoat, are becoming targeted, is because that is the 50% of customers left. That is the 50% of customers left. That is the percentage of the population that still needs to consume this vaccine. All right? All right, everybody. So I don't want to rant on too long. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody from an economic standpoint about understanding the business, the supply and demand, the problem and solution, all the parties involved in this huge cash cow. Just think about it logically. All right. So I'm going to save and upload this. If you guys enjoy this stuff, please take care, like and subscribe, share it around. I might get flagged. This might get taken down, so share it around while you can.